Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Medeva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Om Shri Mahaganapataye Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. अस्मत् गुरुभ्यो नमः। श्रुति स्मृति पुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शंकरं लोकशंकरं शंकरं शंकराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ओम श्री मेधा दक्षिणामूर्ति स्वामिने नमः। ओम सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम। Namaste once again everyone.
Namaste Guruji.
Namaste. वागादि पंच श्रवणादि पंच प्राणादि पंचान्भ्रमुखानि पंच बुद्ध्याद्य विद्यापि च काम कर्मणि पुर्यष्टकं सूक्ष्म शरीरमाहुः. So the 28th shloka we are see 28th in our list, 96th as per the original list. Okay. So after discussing about the gross body, Shankaracharya in this shloka starts expounding the subtle body, the Sukshma Sharira. And he lists parts of the Sukshma Sharira as 8 cities or puris. And in the last class, we saw the description of 4 of them. Vagadi Pancha, Shravanadi Pancha, Pranadi Pancha, Abbramukhani Pancha. Now we will go forward. 5th one is Buddhyadi. Buddhi means intellect. Adi means etc. So, the Shastra talks about 4-fold faculties of our internal organs. They are called Antakarana. Antakaranani. Or in fact, Karanani is not right. It is Antakaranam only. It's only one organ which is divided into 4 parts. What are they? These are, of course, all 4 are invisible. They are all belonging to the Sukshma Sharira. Anta means internal, Karanam means organ, okay, or an instrument. So internal instrument, Antakaranam means internal instrument. And this internal instrument has got 4 functions. And whenever it performs a particular functions, it is given a name. Like, for example, a person may be a manager in the office. Performing managerial function, he may be called a manager. Suppose he comes home, then he will be called father because he is doing a parenting function. Or he may be called a son because he will be doing the function of a son to his old parents. So like that, the person is the same, names differ depending on the function that he undertakes, he or she undertakes. Similarly, this Antakaranam is one, but it is classified into 4 based on 4-fold functions. So here Adi Shankara mentions only one of them, Buddhi, and says Adi. Buddhi, as we know, is the rational function, the intellect, the intelligent function, or you can call it discriminative function or analytical function. That is the function of the buddhi. The next one is mana, mind. And mind is associated with different functions like doubting function, emotional function, coordinating function, etc. For example, when sense organs must function at a given time, to decide whether I should use my eyes or ears, who takes the decision? The mind decides. Suppose you are sitting in the class, the eyes are also open, ears are also open, or and suppose you are actually concentrating on something else in the class. For example, you see a very nice painting. So teacher is teaching, but you are actually admiring the painting. Or maybe, somebody is wearing a nice dress or some other object, you can take it anything. For that, the eyes are used, not the ears. If you are listening to the teacher, the ears are used, not the eyes. And sometimes it happens in the class that both eyes and ears are open, but mind decides not to use them. Instead, it uses its imaginative power to guess maybe so many things, what I should do when I leave this class, or what must be going on at home. So many other thoughts will come. So what is being, the eyes are open, seeing the Acharya, ears are open, the sound is coming, but nothing is getting registered because the mind is not backing the eyes and ears. It is engaged somewhere else. That is the function of the mind. Therefore, when you say, I am concentrating on some object, what it means, the eyes are active. And even though there may be some sounds coming, the ears do not hear the sound because the mind is fully backing the eyes at that time to concentrate on that particular object. Therefore, the mind has to be behind the particular sense organ to make it functional. That's what we call mindfulness, isn't it? So, mind has got either it will back one of the sense organs or it may just wander off also. And decision is taken by the mind. It's like, selector knob in certain gadgets and all that, radio and all that. We select the channel, which channel and all that. So TV also and all that. So mind functions as a selector or coordinator, and it can change the channels midway through, as we do with the remote TV remote rather. All these functions, doubting, emoting, selecting, they're called manaha. And in English, we translate it as mind. So first was buddhi, the intellect. Second is the mind, manaha. The third one is what we call chittam. Chittam, roughly, we can translate as a memory faculty. It is the remembering faculty. It's a storehouse of our memories. Again, a very important function of the antakarana. And the fourth and the last one is ahankaraha. Ahankaraha means identifying one, that which claims all different components as me. When the eyes are seeing, I say I am seeing. When the ears are hearing, I say I am hearing. The self-identifying principle is called ahankara. Aham, aham, aham iti karoti iti ahankara. And in English, the close translation is ego, we say. So these are the four faculties of one and the same internal instrument. And based on the four functions, it is called four organs also. So it's called Buddhyadi Chatushtayam. So these four together is the fifth Puri, fifth city. So five, we have seen five Puris. Pancha Karmendriyani, Pancha Jnanendriyani, Pancha Prana hai, Pancha Bhutani, and Antakarana. Antakarana Chatushtaya. We have to see three more, right? Next Puri is Avidya. He says Avidya Picha. It is not a group, it is a one-member group, if at all you want to call it a group. So this one-member team is the sixth Puri. Here, the word avidya refers to misconception, especially misconception about the self, what we call self-misconception, which is also called adhyasa in the Shastras. In the scriptures, the word avidya refers generally to both self-ignorance and self-misconception. Because self-misconception happens only because of self-ignorance. Therefore, self-ignorance is called karana avidya, causal, the causal ignorance. And self-misconception is called karya avidya, resultant ignorance. So there is one cause, which is self-ignorance, and which leads to self-misconception. Here, the word avidya refers to karya avidya in the form of self-misconception. Because self-ignorance, the causal, the karana avidya will be classified under the karana sharira. When we discuss about karana sharira, there we will again talk about avidya, but that avidya is different from this avidya. So since ignorance, the self-ignorance as such, the karana avidya is placed in the karana shariram. Here, self-misconception is placed in the sukshma shariram. So, karya avidya. And what is this karya avidya, self-misconception? The misconception is claiming that I am a jivatma instead of claiming I am paramatma. We'll not go into much details now because later on all these details will come. And this is avidya, the sixth puri. Apicha means and also. It's not another puri, don't mistake. Apicha is another puri. Next, he talks about kama as the seventh puri. Kama means it could be either a desire or a desired object also. Bundles of desire also. It is the desire which drives a person into karma. Why do we do certain action? The action is prompted by a desire to achieve something, to gain something. And this karma alone, this desire alone, sustains that rebirth cycle, punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam cycle. Desire makes me pedal the samsara chakram endlessly. Desire makes me do karma action. I want a house, I want a car, I want this, I want that. Therefore, I want to earn money. Therefore, I want to work. Therefore, I have to do action. Like that, it is the desire which impels all our actions. While earning money, sometimes I use legitimate means. Sometimes I compromise on values. Thus, I accumulate punyam and papam. So, desire is responsible for karma, and karma gives punarjanmam, or I would put it this way, desire is responsible for karma. Performance of karma leads to generation of punya and papa, and the punya and papa leads to punarjanmam. That's why elsewhere in his commentary and all, Adi Shankara says the main reason for the perpetuation of samsara is this deadly combination of three things: avidya, kama, karma. So therefore, kama means desires, all types of desires. This is the seventh puri or puram. Say in Tamil, puram. Or in Hindi, pur. Then the eighth one is karma. So karma can refer to both actions, and also the word karma in the Shastra is used to mean the result of action also. Karma phalam, which is what punya papa, invisible karma phalam. So good and bad actions give rise to good and bad results in the form of punyam and papa. It's also called karma. Therefore, the karma is placed in the Sukshma Shariram, especially the fructifying karma, the prarabdha karma. The karma which cannot fructify in this janma will be deposited in the Karana Shariram. So, unutilized agami karma or unfructified agami karma and sanchita karma will be in the Karana Shariram, when prarabdha karma alone is placed in the Sukshma Shariram. So that is the eighth. Karma is the eighth. So kama karmani, he says, kama seventh city, karma eighth city. Thus, all these eight factors put together is called puryashtakam. And he says, puryashtakam sukshma shariram ahuhu. This eight is called sukshma shariram. Ahuhu is the verb here. Ahuhu means is said to be. But who has said? He is not told. He has just ahu. So subject of the verb is not given here. So we can add that Rishaya ahu. The rishis say. Rishis declare this as the subtle body, which is finer than the gross body. It is invisible and survives the death of the physical body. Not only one physical body. The Sukshma Shariram survives many physical bodies, including if someone is a jiva is born as an animal, plant and all, the Sukshma Shariram continues, the same Sukshma Shariram continues in different types of physical bodies, and that continues throughout the current creation, current cycle of creation. So in succession, it takes on different bodies. It will drop the earlier one, take another body. So it's got a very Sukshma Shariram. Mind you, Stula Shariram, the gross body has got life for only one birth. At the end of that birth, the gross body goes away. Whereas this subtle body continues till the end of this cycle of creation. It gets dismantled only at the time of pralayam, when the whole universe is resolved. So at the time of pralayam, the physical body won't be there. Subtle body also won't be there. It will get resolved. However, the finest of the three, the Karana Shariram, will continue. Even when the whole universe is resolved, Karana Shariram continues. Because that Karana Shariram becomes the seed for the next Srishti, next creation to happen. In fact, I should put it other way, next Srishti happens because Karana Shariram is there. So Karana Shariram survives the Pralayam, continues into the next Srishti. So the Punya Papa, which are all stored in the Karana Shariram, they don't go away at all. Even if the whole world, whole universe gets resolved, when the next Srishti comes, that effect of that Punya Papa in terms of the birth of this Jiva again in some kind of a body will happen. And it goes on. Pralayam after pralayam, Srishti after Srishti. The universes appear and disappear, but Karana Shariram survives. As they say, it is the hardest nut to crack. Question now is, when will this Karana Shariram get resolved? Very valid question. We will see about that later. Okay. There is only one way Karana Shariram can be resolved. What is the way? We will see about it later. Of course, those of you who have been attending Gita classes and other Upanishad classes, not only here, otherwise also may probably know the answer rather. But for others, let the suspense be there for the time being. So, the physical body perishes at the time of death. Subtle body goes on till the time of pralayam. The Karana Shariram, causal body, continues creation after creation, but it also gets resolved eventually. That you must remember. These are the three bodies, Stula Shariram, Sukshma Shariram and Karana Shariram. And they are collectively called Shariratrayam. Now, we will go to the next stoka where the topic of Sushma Shariram continues. Idam Shariram Srunu Sukshma Sangitam Lingam Swapanchikrita Bhuta Sambhavam. Actually, this is no meter, it's like a prose. Savasanam Karma Phalanubhavakam Swajnanato na anadirupadhiratmanah swapno bhavatyasya vibhaktya vasta swamatra seshena vibhati yatra. Actually, idam shariram shrunu sukshma sangitam lingam tvapanchikrita bhuta sambhavam savasanam karma phalanubhavakam स्वज्ञानतः अनादि रूपादि आत्मनः स्वप्नः भवत्यस्य विभक्त्य अवस्था स्वमात्र शेषेण विभाति यत्र. So the अन्वय of this shloka is Shrunu idam sukshma sankitam lingam shariram tu apanchikrita bhuta sambhavam Savasanam karma phalanubhavakam swajnanato atmanah anadihi upadihi yatra swamatra seshena vibhati swapnah asya bhavati. Long sentence. Shrunu, listen, may you listen. Idam, this. Sukshma Shankitam, named as, called as subtle. Lingam Shariram. For the present, Lingam Shariram, we will keep it as Linga Sharira only. Okay, we will see what is Linga Sharira later. Two, indeed. Apanchikrita Bhuta Sambhavam, born of elements in their subtle state, non-grossified state. Savasanam, with impressions of previous experiences. Karva Phalanu Bhavakam, experiencer of the results of action. Swa Ajnanataha, due to self-ignorance. Atmanaha, for the Jiva. Anadihi, beginningless. Upadihi, limiting adjunct. Yatra, in which. Swamatra Seshena, by itself remaining alone. Vibhati, shines. Swapnaha, dream. Asya, its. Vibhakti avastha, distinct state, bhavati is. Lot of ideas he has packed in one sloka. Which sloka is also not set to any meter, it is just a prose. This is one feature of Vivekachudamani. Now, most like Bhagavad Gita and all, the entire Gita is set to a same meter. Whereas in Vivekachudamani, different verses are in different meters rather. Probably, Shankaracharya also wanted to put lot of ideas in one sloka. So he has to sometimes break the rule of the meter. Anyhow. So the meaning, simple meaning of the sloka is, know that this subtle body is also known as Linga Sharira. It is indeed born of elements in their subtle state and is possessed of impressions of previous experiences. It is the experiencer of the results of action, namely Punya and Papa, and is the beginningless Upadhi for the Jivatma. Dream is its distinct state in which it shines alone without the physical body. So, the subtle body is called unique because it is talked about by the Shastra alone. Modern science does not accept the subtle body. It doesn't accept it. When we talk in the Shastra, for example, when we say that seeing, modern science says seeing is because of through the eyes you see. You have eyes, you see. And you say, there are blind people, they have also got eyes, but why can't they see? Science will say, no, there is some connection which is missing, between the brain and that eyes and all that. They will give some explanation like that. But if you ask us, we will say, actually, whenever we say seeing, it involves two instruments, two organs. One is the physical eye, which is attached to the face. Another is their faculty, the sight faculty, the seeing power, which is behind this, the seeing. It is because of the seeing power that these eyes are able to see. And our answer is, because that seeing power is impaired, even though the eyes are there, it can't see. That is the explanation we give. They say, no, there is nothing called seeing power and all that. It is some nerve connection and things like that and all. They will explain. So science doesn't accept Sukshma Shariram. Science doesn't accept rebirth or Punarjanma. It is not that they are accepting because of some arrogance or anything. The problem is the limitation of the modern science. It does not have any instrument to see Sukshma Sharira. For modern science, there is nothing called the mind. They say there is only one brain. That's a hardware. Visible brain alone they call mind. There is no separate mind for them. And that's why even they claim psychology is a pseudo-science. They don't accept psychology as a full-fledged science. They accept neurology, brains, biology, chemistry and all they will accept, but they will not accept a mind other than the brain. It's Shastra alone which says brain is different. It is not the physical brain that when you open the head, you will see. There is something behind that, something subtle for the brain to work, and that belongs to Sukshma Shariram. Mind, the psyche is different, but that also belongs to Sukshma Shariram, which the scientists can't see. Not because the mind is not there, but because of the limitations of their equipment. We don't have an instrument which can see the mind. That is our limitation, not the limitation of non-existence. We accept the mind because for us Shastram is the Pramanam. We go by Shastra for our knowledge. If you remember, while talking about Shraddha, I said that other than these Pramanani, that is the Pancha Pramanani, the 5 sense organs, we have got Shastra Pramanam, which reveals what cannot be revealed by the sense organs and also modern science. Therefore, we should remember that once we come to the subtle body, we can discuss this only based on the scriptures. We have left the modern science behind. And if you ask, how do you get this knowledge? What is the proof? I will say Shastram is the Pramanam. We accept the Shastra as the Pramanam. You don't accept, so you don't believe in it. No problem. So more details about Sukshma Shariram is given in this sloka. He says Shrunu. Now this is Shrunu is a very common word used by the teachers, especially when there is a dialogue between the student and the teacher. The teacher will say, listen, hey student, listen. And he has to say this, occasionally, because Vedanta as such is a very abstract topic. Many students, initial stages, they will find that whatever is being talked about is nothing is registering. Typically, they will say everything went over my head, isn't it? All of us would have invariably experienced this when we were new to Vedanta. So what happens is some students at least may off and on doze off. As such, I am forced to sit in the class. I can't understand anything. So let me do something which is better, which is take a small nap. So the teacher has to wake up the student by, say, cracking some jokes, or he will say, Shrunu. It means listen carefully. He says, Idam Shariram, Sukshma Sangitam, this subtle body, which is inaccessible to the modern science, is called Sukshma Shariram, the subtle body. The very word subtle indicates that it is inaccessible to any pramanam other than Shastra. It is a apaurusheya vishaya. It is alaukikam. Sukshma Shariram is apaurusheyam alaukikam. Sangitam means named or called. Idam Shariram Sukshma Sangitam. So this body is called the subtle body. It's named the finer body as compared to the gross physical body. And then lingam to apanchikrita bhuta sambhavam. The word lingam means that which reveals, which evidences, which manifests the consciousness principle by borrowing consciousness. Because to begin with, all bodies are made up of matter only. Panchabhutani. Matter is inert and doesn't have sentiency. And we have seen that consciousness is not a product property of the material body. And since the body doesn't have its own intrinsic consciousness, and since it also cannot produce its own consciousness, the body has to only reflect or manifest or borrow the consciousness, which is the nature of Atma, which is the spiritual principle. I mean, we have a nice example. For example, we say moonlight. But does the moon really have a light of its own? No. It reflects or manifests the light belonging to the sun. So when sunlight is reflected on the moon, we call it moonlight. Similarly, these three bodies, the Stula, Sukshma, Karana, Sharirani, are capable of borrowing consciousness because they are fine enough, subtle enough to borrow. They have the equipment for the consciousness to reflect in them and make them sentient. But a table cannot do that. A cloth cannot do that. But a mirror can do. Mirror can reflect a face because the mirror is fine. But a clock or a book cannot reflect a face. Unless, of course, there is a clock, at least you can say there is a glass there. So that has got the capability for reflection. So similarly, all the three shariranis, the three sharirams, three bodies, they have the capability because they are compared to the gross world outside, they are finer. Therefore, they can reflect the consciousness. Other objects cannot. But we must understand one thing, even though the three bodies are fine, there is a relative gradation amongst them too in terms of their fineness. Stula Shariram is fine, Sukshma Shariram is finer, Karana Shariram is the finest. In terms of subtle, subtler, and subtlest, we can say. And Karana Shariram, being the finest, is able to borrow the consciousness directly from Atma first. So how this process of sentiency takes place? The Karana Shariram, being the subtlest, alone has got the direct access to consciousness because consciousness is one grade subtler than Karana Shariram also. It is the closest. Karana Shariram is closest to the consciousness in terms of subtlety. So what happens when Karana Shariram borrows or reflects the consciousness first, it becomes sentient because it is directly borrowing the consciousness from Brahman or Atma or from the cosmic consciousness, supreme consciousness. Of course, we have not gone into the topic of Karana Shariram yet. I am using the word Karana Shariram here just to explain this process. We will see Karana Shariram in detail later. Because if I have to tell you how Sukshma Shariram becomes sentient, without talking about Karana Shariram, I cannot explain how Sukshma Shariram becomes sentient. So, Karana Shariram first becomes sentient borrowing consciousness directly from the Atma. Then the Karana Shariram lends consciousness to Sukshma Shariram. In terms of gradation, Sukshma Shariram is nearer to the Karana Shariram. Even though it is less finer, it is only one grade lower than Karana Shariram. So it is easy for Sukshma Shariram to borrow consciousness from Karana Shariram. Sukshma Shariram, mind you, cannot directly access or borrow from Atma because it is 2 steps away. But then it borrows consciousness through Karana Shariram. Then what about Stula Shariram, the gross body? The gross body, as I said, it's less finer than even the Sukshma Shariram. Therefore, the physical body cannot borrow consciousness directly. It cannot borrow either from Atma or even from Karana Sharira. It has to borrow only through Sukshma Sharira. We thus get a flow chart of consciousness. From Atma, the consciousness flows into Karana Shariram. Then from Karana Shariram, it goes to Sukshma Shariram. And finally, from Sukshma Shariram to the Sthula Shariram. So this is the way the process through which the borrowing of consciousness is made by the 3 bodies, and all 3 bodies become sentient. Whereas a table or chair or any other inanimate object do not and cannot borrow that. And based on this, the word lingam is used, which evidences. Therefore, the Sukshma Shariram becomes very important to keep the Stula Shariram, physical body, alive and functional. The very quality of our life depends upon the proper functioning of our Indriyams, which are part of the Sukshma Shariram only. Therefore, the Sukshma Shariram is very important for any living being. The moment the Sukshma Shariram quits, of course, along with the Karana Shariram, this Stula Shariram, physical body, becomes dead. In fact, all these happen simultaneously. The Prarabdha Karma ending, one event. At the same simultaneously, the Sukshma Shariram, Karana Shariram leaving the body, and the body is dead, declared dead. Therefore, the body, physical body, is a living being only because of the presence of Sukshma Shariram. Sukshma Shariram alone makes the very living being possible. And moreover, living beings alone have got self-awareness. This self-awareness is also due to Sukshma Shariram. And this is very, very important, because this self-awareness alone helps us to discover the absolute, the all-pervading consciousness. In Mandukya Upanishad, the word used for self-awareness is Eka Atma Pratyaya Saram. Continuous self-awareness is the lead for the spiritual seeker to make further inquiries and to know the absolute consciousness. That is the importance of Sukshma Shariram. So self-awareness is the empirical awareness in the Sukshma Shariram. Through that alone, we discover the absolute consciousness.
Guruji, can you repeat the last sentence about the Mandukya Upanishad?
Mandukya Upanishad says, Eka Atma Pratyaya Saram. Pratyaya Saram means continuous thought process. Atma is one, but that Atma, through a continuous thought process, continuous self-awareness, is the lead for the spiritual seeker to make further inquiries and to know the absolute consciousness. Because if that self-awareness was not there, there'll be a break in the thought process. So that self-awareness, not only self-awareness should be there, it should be continuous also. That is how you can go from one to another. One understanding of the absolute consciousness to a higher understanding, to a higher understanding. Is that clear? Anyhow, I think he has gone mute. We'll continue. Self-awareness, therefore,
Yes, Guruji, I got it. Thank you.
Okay. So self-awareness is possible only because of Sukshma Shariram. And since this, it helps in knowing the Atma, Sukshma Shariram is called Lingam. Lingam means that which reveals, evidences, manifests the consciousness principle by borrowing consciousness. Because even though the Karana Shariram is borrowing the consciousness in the first instance, Karana Shariram is not useful for us to know the Atma. It is not, Karana Shariram is not useful for the purposes of our spiritual journey. In fact, the goal of our spiritual journey is to get rid of this Karana Shariram. So that you avoid all this rebirth business and all the samsara birth. So in short, that which helps us in knowing the Atma, that which evidences the existence of a consciousness, what we can call a supreme consciousness, and that which reveals, helps us in knowing that Atma is Sukshma Shariram, and therefore Sukshma Shariram is called a Lingam. Next part is Lingam tu apanchikrita bhuta sambhavam. Tu means here, on the other hand. On the other hand means what? It is used here to differentiate Sukshma Shariram from Stula Shariram. Because the gross body is born out of gross elements, subtle body on the other hand too is born out of subtle elements. Apanchikritam means ungrossified. Earlier when we talked about Stula Shariram, we saw the word Panchikritam, grossified. Here it is Apanchikritam, non-grossified. Non-grossified means was subtle. Then Savasanam Karma Phalanubhavakam. So this Linga Shariram, this Sukshma Shariram, has got many Punya Papa Karmani born out of our past actions. We saw in the previous sloka, Buddhyadi Avidya Apicha Kama Karmani. Punya Papa Karma, especially the Prarabdha Karmas, are stored in the Sukshma Shariram. We have seen that in the previous sloka. Here, Shankaracharya adds one more dimension. He says it is not only the Prarabdha Karmas are there, but the Prarabdha Vasanas are also stored in the Sukshma Shariram. Savasanam, he says. Because every karma produces three things. Normally we say karma produces, one is visible result and an invisible result in terms of punya papa. But every karma actually produces three things. Visible result of that karma, punya papa, depending upon the type of karma, and also a vasana. What is vasana? Vasana is the tendency to do the same karma again and again. The result of karma is called karma phalam. The tendency to do the same karma is called a vasana. The karma phalam will affect me by giving situations as a bhokta, as an experiencer. Whereas the vasana will influence me as a karta by holding me onto the same thing. For example, it is like smoking. When one smokes cigarettes, there will be a one result, or you can say karma phalam, as per statutory warnings on the cigarette packs. But at the same time, the smoking habit creates a vasana, which we term as addiction. We call what nicotine addiction or something like that, which forces the person to smoke again and again, despite the statutory warning, which he reads every time he buys a pack of cigarettes. Similarly, some people get used to the morning bed coffee. They want to have a coffee. When they wake up, sit in the bed, they want a cup of coffee to be served. Of course, this was olden days, it was very popular. These days, I don't know whether it still happens. Maybe in the houses of big shots, big film actors and all, it happens. I don't know. But that is there. I mean, they get used to this morning bed coffee. It creates such a vasana that they cannot get out of the bed without that cup of coffee. So whenever we start doing something, there is an urge to do it again. Because first time when we do it, we get some enjoyment out of it, some fulfillment kind of a feeling. It's only a feeling, huh? Then we feel that we should repeat it. The more you repeat it, a vasana is formed. Addiction is formed. Therefore, what happens? Even though the karma phala, the result of the action, influences or gives experience to a bhokta as an enjoyer, as an experiencer, the vasanas influence the karta, the doer. Therefore, we have prarabdha karmas and we have got prarabdha vasanas also. And that is why, because of that alone, different people have got different inclinations. And that is why we find some babies are interested in music at a very, very young age. Some in painting, some in maths. Such inclinations are because of Purva Janma Vasanas. So karma affects the bhokta, vasana affects the karta. And we are all full of vasanas. If you all are interested in spirituality and if you are feeling like attending a Vivekachudamani class or a Bhagavad Gita class, it is because of your spiritual vasana which you have been carrying forward from your previous births. Otherwise, 99.9% of the people do not have any interest in spirituality. They have curiosity. For example, even this, I don't know how many students are there today. We are 20 students, right? You know how many people registered for this course? More than 45 people registered for this course. And first class, maybe 42 people attended the introductory class. But over a period of time, people have left. They don't have the spiritual vasana for them to continue to be interested in this topic. So, savasanam karma phalanubhavakam. These are all adjectives to Sukshma Shariram. Vasanadihi saha vartate iti savasanam. Sukshma Shariram. Savasanam means full of vasanas, with lot of vasanas. Karma phala anubhavakam. So the Sukshma Shariram alone converts the Jivatma into a Karta and Bhokta. Through the Vasanas, it makes me a Karta. Through the karmas, it makes me a bhokta. So a jivatma becomes karta and bhokta only when he identifies with the sukshma shariram. The moment I go to sleep, there is no identification with sukshma shariram. Then I am neither a karta nor a bhokta. Therefore, it is clear that the sukshma shariram alone makes me a jivatma, a karta, a bhokta, etc. And how does it happen? He says, karma phalanubhavakam. It makes the jivatma an experience of pleasant and unpleasant experiences by making it a bhokta, an experience of karma phalam of all punya papam accumulated over so many janmas. Therefore, karma phalani anubhavayati makes us experience. Iti anubhavakam. And this sukshma shariram is called upadhihi. Upadhihi atmanaha, it is called. Upadhi is a technical word in the Shastra. In English, the nearest translation is as adjunct, adjunct, adjunct. But I will try to give you a simple meaning, a simple example. The word upadhi is used to indicate something which makes something else appear differently. Very complicated sentence. I'll repeat it. The word upadhi is used to indicate something which makes something else appear differently. So if X in the proximity of Y, it will make Y appear differently. In this case, X is the upadhi and Y is called upahitam. So upadhihi makes upahitam appear differently. It does not change the upahitam, it only makes the upahitam appear differently. So upadhi is just a distorting factor. It distorts the object which are close by. The example given in the Shastra, Vedanta, is of a colored object in the proximity of a colorless crystal. For example, you have got a colorless crystal, you place it on the table, like a spatikam, clear crystal. Then you place a red color flower behind the colorless crystal. What will happen? The crystal will now start looking red, which was earlier colorless. Now it becomes a red colored crystal. But crystal does not inherently have the redness. It is the redness of the flower which is in close proximity. So in the proximity of the colored object, the colorless crystal appears colored. It doesn't become colored, it just appears colored. So that colored object is called upadhi. That flower, which is making this crystal appear as red, that is called upadhi, and the crystal is called upahitam. So the upadhi distorts the upahitam. In fact, Sureshwaracharya, who is one of the very leading disciples of Adi Shankara, gives a surprising scientific example in Naishkarmya Siddhi. He says, suppose you keep a straight rod partially under water in a glass bowl. One half of the rod is under water, the other half is above the water. And look at it from the side. The straight rod now has a distorted version. It appears bent at the point of contact with the water. Isn't it? It's a simple experiment which we have all done in school and colleges. So the straight rod appears bent because of the water. So water is the upadhi and the rod is the upahitam. Similarly, all three sharirams are also called the Upadhi for Jivatma. And why they are called Upadhi, we will see in the next class. Okay. Om Purnamadav Purnamidham Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.
धन्यवाद रघु जी.
Very much. Dhanyawad.
धन्यवाद गुरुजी.
धन्यवाद गुरु जी.
Dhanyawad. Thank you.
Thank you, Guruji. Hari Om. Thank you.
धन्यवादः महोदय. नमस्ते.
Om. Thank you.
हरि ओम गुरुजी.
Hari Om.
Thank you, sir.
He will be very happy. हरि ओम गुरुजी.
Yes, Girish ji. Shoot.
Yeah, Hari Om. Guruji, you know, when we talk about the karma, actually, our children, or you know, I would say children, they get some of our looks or also some of the characters. So how does that work? You know, when we are all individuals with uniqueness, how these parents influences their characters or their looks into the children. How does that work?
See, there are, we have to understand it from two perspectives.
Please.
One is, everybody is carrying a set of karmas. So, when a particular person dies, and as I said, these karmas, there are two aspects of these karmas. One is karma phalas, right, which are there in the Sukshma Shariram.
Okay.
And the agami, that is the prarabdha karmas, that is the present karmas which are there.
Okay.
They are in the Sukshma Shariram. And in the Karana Shariram, the unfructified karmas are stored.
Okay.
Now, when the death of the physical body takes place, what happens? Both the Sukshma Shariram and Karana Shariram go out of this physical body.
Okay.
But they are not going on any trip or anything. At the time of the death of this physical body itself, what type of body that Atma or that Jivatma has to take is already decided.
Oh, okay.
Because once this prarabdha karma is over, this fixed deposit has matured and you have already utilized that money, the next set of fixed deposit becomes alive, which will determine what is your going to be what type of birth you are going to get next, including what type of parentage you are going to get, in which family you are going to be born, which country you are going to be born. Are you going to be born as a plant or an animal or a human being? Whether you are going to be born as a male or a female or neither of them, all these things are decided the moment this prarabdha karma is over, the next schedule comes up. And from where it is coming up? It is coming up from the storage of sanchita karmas which is there in the Karana Sharira. So based on that, whatever karma is fructifying for the next birth,
Okay.
it could be the next birth could be a birth of even a mosquito.
Okay.
It could be the birth of, of some insect which lives only for a few hours. Or it could be the birth of an elephant, or it could be birth of a tortoise which could even live up to 300 years and all. So that could be, we don't know that, right? But that is decided at that particular point in time. So you are born, and then what happens is this cosmic powers, they do the matching. How do they decide which parent it should be born? Because there is a karma of the parents.
Yes.
There is a karma of this. So they do a matching. Computer matching is done.
Okay.
Okay, this karma is fructifying. This karma can be exhausted. They can be fulfilled only if this particular parents in this family, only this karma can be fulfilled. So let this jiva be born in this family. That is one aspect of that character. We must understand. In fact, when we study Kathopanishad, it touches upon this particular aspect in Kathopanishad, how this happens like that.
Okay.
Second aspect, of course, is that when a child is born, now, as I often say, because many times, we as parents feel, oh, my son has done this, my son has done that, my daughter has done this, my daughter has done that. We feel very bad. Did I not give them a proper education? Did I not give them a proper guidance? They have done, they are doing all these things. This is a guilt feeling many parents come up with rather. For that, we have to understand what is the process. Any personality of any person consists of 4 dimensions.
Okay.
When the child is born, the contribution of the parents in the development of the personality of the child is only 1/4. The second quarter is determined by what we talked about, the vasanas of the child. With the child, with the Jivatma is carrying forward from the previous births, the vasanas. That is why, some people have got a small child which plays tabla, mridangam and all.
Okay.
They have not taught the child to play tabla, mridangam, but it plays that. How? Because of the vasanas being carried forward. So that is the second quarter aspect. Quarter means I'm not saying 25%.
Okay.
4 parts. We don't know which is the more determinable part, but there are 4 parts. The third, of course, is the karma of that person itself. What karma, prarabdha karma, he is born with rather. So you may give the best, but if that karma of that person doesn't support it, he will not get it. He will only get the results of his own past actions in the previous births. And the fourth aspect is of a personality is interaction with the world. When the person goes into the world, college and all that, that influence also, the peer influence, the influence of the world also determines the personality which this person becomes. So when a person is born, that is why we find that there are some characters of us in the children, but not all our good
Yes.
or bad things are there in the children. There are parent, father who is a chain smoker. The son does not even go near a cigarette.
Correct.
Or reverse also is there. Right? So like that, it's a very, very, I would probably call it complicated process. But we can at least identify how it happens, even though we may not be able to actually prove all these things, because this all Shastra is only the pramana of that, for all these
Okay.
things.
Agree.
So that is why, this, what you said about this difference in the children and all that happens. So we have to understand it from karma angle, vasana angle, and also the angle of the 4 parts after birth.
Agree.
That's what happens.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Hari.
you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Any other question? Nothing. Yes, Hariji. Rio.
Guruji, can you differentiate between gross body and physical body?
Nothing, no different. Gross body. Physical body is called gross body because it is grossified. The Panchabhutas are grossified. That's why it's called gross body. And it's a physical body we refer to as physical because we can see it. We can touch and feel it. That's why it's physical. There's no difference as such.
When you are see a living person and a dead person. Is the physical body of the living person and dead person, will it be same?
It will be same. Physical body will be the same till the dead person is disposed of.
Does the presence of subtle body, that is the mind and intellect, does it give any effect on the so-called physical body of a living person?
Not only mind and intellect. In fact, this physical body,
Yeah,
it is because of the Sukshma Shariram as a
Yeah.
whole that this physical body is in this healthy condition. The moment Sukshma Shariram goes away, in 3 hours, this whole physical body will start to rot. It will become, foul smell will come out of this physical body. Have you not seen it? Dead bodies, how they smell. Why? Why the human living body doesn't smell, but the moment the person dies, 3 to 5 hours, the body starts rotting, all worms all over the place. In fact, all the other things come and eat up this body rather. Body becomes a food for so many insects and worms and things like that. And why? Because the Sukshma Shariram has left. So the physical, but there is a big difference between the physical body while living and physical body when it is dead. And the difference is made by the Sukshma Shariram. As long as Sukshma Shariram is there in this body, everything is working. This body is healthy. Then they'll say, oh, we're having hair and things like that and all. When the body is dead, apparently for seeing, it may look like the same person only. Not that when it goes in, the eyes are gone and things are gone, nothing like that. The person is the same only. But a very important aspect which made that person as a living person has gone. And that is why in our culture, we say that a dead body should not be kept for a very long time. It should be disposed of as quickly as possible. Of course, these days they have got all other things, ice cube, and they keep it in some refrigerator and all things like that and all because of circumstances. But you should dispose of the body within a few hours so that it doesn't start stinking. So there is a huge difference between the living body and the dead body. And that difference is made by Sukshma Shariram. If
we can, in other words, we can interchange the words gross body and physical body.
Yeah. Gross body is, see, normally gross body in our day-to-day conversation, we will not use.
Yeah.
We use in Shastra the word gross as a translation because what are the equivalent Sanskrit words? Stula, Sukshma.
And Sukshma.
Correct. Now, Stula, how will you translate? If you just say physical body, it doesn't convey anything. When you say gross body, that corresponds to Sula Sharira, and in comparison to Sukshma, which is subtle body, it then gives a certain orientation. Oh, this is gross. What is the difference between gross and subtle body? Both are made of all the Panchabhutas, correct? But the difference is the Panchabhuta in their original form are subtle Panchabhutas. To a process of grossification, they become gross Panchabhutas. So this gross body is made of the gross Panchabhutas. The subtle body is made out of the subtle Panchabhutas. That is why when we want to differentiate, we call it gross body because of the grossification process. Physical body, subtle body, Sukshma Sharira, because it is Apanchikritam, not grossified in its original state. That is why we use the word physical. Normally, it's very easy for people to relate. If I say gross body, we say what is gross body? Physical body means, the one which is tangible, we can touch and feel and all that physical body. No difference otherwise. It's only nomenclature. Just use of words. That's all.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Any other question? Any other doubts? Nothing is there. Okay. We will then close the session and carry on next week.
Thank you. Namaste.
ధన్యవాదాలు.
Okay. Dhanyawad.
Namaste. Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you, Guruji. Hari Om.
Thank you.